All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the October 9th, 2025 meeting of the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan Civic Advisory Committee. My name is Ben Demers. I'm a senior planner with the city, and I do a lot of our coordinating work within Winter Hill. Just give me a moment to share screen and check the attendees tab. Okay. So we have three members of the public with us this evening. I do just want to make a note also that we are hosting this Civic Advisory Committee or CAC meeting this evening using Zoom webinar. The one thing that I would like to call out, sorry, it's always funny getting the text set up. The one thing I would like to call out is that the chat function amongst attendees has been disabled, which I know is a little bit different than some other Zoom webinars you might use. Generally, when we host open meetings, we need to comply with the state's open meeting law, which doesn't allow for what is called side conversation. So I try to just give this disclaimer at the beginning. You won't have access to the chat function that you might normally have for other Zoom calls that you might be a part of. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So just to run through our agenda quickly, I'm going to start with a roll call and an approval of the previous meeting summary. Then we're going to move into the most substantive item for this evening, which is a development update for 299 Broadway. So we're joined this evening by several members of the development team to talk more about that. I'm then going to give a quick update on a city acquisition of a portion of the land, just to kind of keep everyone in the loop. And then we'll shift into neighborhood updates from Civic Advisory Committee members before we also allow for questions from the public and then adjourn. And I'll just note, public comment period is kind of segmented off as its own section. However, these meetings we run fairly informally. So if any member of the public who is with us this evening does have a comment, please feel welcome to raise your hand. I'll be monitoring the attendee section, and so we can definitely take your question as part of the relevant item, especially while we have the development team here. So why don't I do roll call quickly? Breck Bailey.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you, Breck. Councillor Klingon, I see, is on.
Present.
Councillor Wilson, I do not see on.
I'll be late.
Okay. Ani, I also do not see on. I will share this recording afterwards, though, with anybody who's not able to attend. Denise?
Here.
Thank you. Arthur is not able to attend. Renee?
Here.
Nick, I also do not see on. Raymond?
Here.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and then before we move into the updates, I'd sent out a draft meeting summary of our June meeting with the agenda for this evening. Just wanted to see, did people have a chance to review? And if so, were there any comments, or are we good to approve that and post it with the previous meeting summary on the website? And also not a problem if people didn't have a chance to review, but if we're generally just kind of thumbs up.
Yeah, no comments from me, Ben, on it. I took a brief spin.
Okay, awesome. I will upload that after the meeting. Okay. With that, I'm going to, and this is not correct. I apologize. But with that, I'm going to shift us into the development update. So I'm going to invite Scott Lombardi from the Mark development team to kind of introduce us to the item. I know, 299 Broadway, just to give quick context for anybody who might be watching this afterwards, within the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan, which this group really meets to talk about, 299 Broadway is kind of a big portion of that project. And so we know that many people are often joining this most interested in updates on that development timeline. So Scott, I will hand it over to you. Obviously, Leanne and Greg are not here. But if you want to just introduce the members of your team who are with us this evening, and I'll also take a quick moment to acknowledge that Councillor Jake Wilson was able to just join the call.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Good to see everyone again. So yeah, I'll just give you real quick introductions to Kevin Lesko and Nick Picardo from Samuels and Associates. We were talking about this earlier, and it seemed more appropriate to invite them to this because they are much more heavily involved in the construction and what's going to be happening out there, physically on site over the next couple of years here. So you'll see them on here, and they can jump in if I state anything incorrectly because they're, like I said, closest to the construction. And you'll still see plenty of Leanne from Beacon and Greg Contente from Samuels, but wanted to get the right people here for this update. So we just to give you quick status updates for where some of our processes are at here. We're in for multiple building permits right now: a site permit, select demo permit, building demo permit, and the foundation and vertical constructions for both buildings A and B. We are, I'll say, on track with our closing. We're very confident it's going to happen in the upcoming weeks here. We don't have an exact date yet. We've been targeting the end of this month, and might be slightly earlier, slightly later. But in the meantime, we're confident it's going to get there, and we've committed to some early release work, some actual work on site pre-closing with our contractor for the site work. So just to explain some of the dynamics at play here and the reason there's a lot of different people on our team. It's, for those of you who I haven't updated on this in the past, it's a partnership with Beacon Communities at Building A. They have 115 units there. Mark Development and Samuels and Associates on Building B are 204 units that we'll be handling the vertical construction of. And then all three parties are developing the site together. So that's the work you're going to see happening first. We're calling it our site enabling work, but it's really all the site work that's going to happen throughout the course of the entire project. The site work, we have committed to a contractor named DF Prey. Mark Development has a ton of experience with them, going back 30 plus years with Robert Korf. We like them. We know them well. We trust them. We know they can perform. So Beacon, Mark Development, Samuels, we've all committed to use them for this site enabling phase that you're going to see happening here soon. From there, they'll deliver a pad, a construction pad. So the building footprint area to Beacon, who's going to use DF Prey for their vertical construction, and then to Mark Development and Samuels on the building B side. We're going to be working with a contractor named Plumhouse. They are exclusively multifamily, large-scale stick-build construction guys. They have a ton of in-house field personnel that actually builds the buildings. They're incredibly reputable. I think if you were to ask around the industry, if you don't know them, people would put them at the front of the pack for the prominent builders of this type of product. So we're excited to be using them to be able to make it work with a contractor who we respect. So we, like I said, we issued what we call limited notices to proceed to DF Prey for the beginning portions of the site work. We expect that they'll physically be on site probably the week of the 20th, later in the week of the 20th. It'll be a slow ramp up. It's they'll mobilize, they'll set up their temporary fencing, they'll get their site security in place, they'll make safe some of the utilities, they'll probably do some select utility disconnect work. And you begin the CMP implementation, the construction management plan, the work that's going to happen within the work that will happen around the perimeter of the site to establish where our work area will be, and any temporary sidewalk relocations, signage relocations, things that people from the city would be interacting with. And that will be a process that goes through the engineering department. They've been vetting our plan for months, probably years now. So we've gotten a lot of input on that, and over the probably late October, early November, you'll start to see that be put into place. Just to break it down into weeks here, at least weeks that we're targeting for larger milestones, the last week of October, probably first week of November-ish, we're planning right now for the building abatement work to begin. So probably important for us to tell you what that's going to look like for you and what it really means for us. It's probably not a lot of staff on site. It will be relatively small crews. It will be people who are wearing hazmat suits because they're required to by code because of the type of work they do. But the building abatement is almost exclusively very typical asbestos containing materials. So in Walgreens, you got floor tiles, there's some glue on insulation board, some glazing material. It's about a week of abatement work at Walgreens with a relatively small, quiet crew, and I think all of the work at that building is inside the building, so probably shouldn't be very noticeable, other than people will be on site, parked at the site and working in the buildings. The bulk of the building abatement works over at Star Market. It's a larger building and there's more asbestos containing materials in there. Again, it's nothing that's it's not extremely typical on buildings that were built before, call it 1980. It's floor tiles, glazing, all the stuff that we see over at Walgreens, except there's more of it because it's a larger building. I will point out that the one piece of abatement work that will be visible from you guys, from people passing the site, from the neighborhood, if you really are trying to take a close look, because it's happening outside the building, is the precast concrete panels that make up the walls of the exterior of Star Market. They do have the joint sealant between each of the panels is asbestos containing, so they'll have to set up to peel that out before the concrete panels themselves come down and are demoed with the rest of the the structural demolition that we get into. So that gets us through there's probably 5 to 6 weeks at Star Market. And Nick, Kevin, if I'm misstating anything here, feel free to jump in, but probably early December by the time all the building abatement works complete. In November, we're hoping to also start some of the asbestos soil abatement. I think most people on here know that this project has evolved around the asbestos that we found in the soil there. We really strategically planned where the buildings were going to go, where the foundation elements were going to go, where we were not going to have underground parking because of this asbestos in the soil. We've limited to really just a few, I think there are 4 or 5 targeted pockets of asbestos containing soil on site that we need to abate in order to put the buildings where they're going to go. So it will look like typical site work contractors, but they'll be dressed in the gear of the hazmat crews. So it's the same people, but it's people that have the training to be able to deal with soils like that. And just so that you guys aren't overly concerned, we will have a hygienist on site to do testing for that. We'll have an environmental consultant, and the actual asbestos materials within that soil is a fraction of a percent. So in most states, this would just be soil that could go to any landfill or disposal site. In Massachusetts, it's treated differently. They're very stringent with their asbestos rules within soils. They're lenient within buildings, but if it's in soil at all, even a trace amount like we found, we have to treat it all as hot, even though it's not necessarily posing any imminent threat to anyone, even the people doing the work. So we probably have about a month of that process. There's daily reports to DEP. There's a lot of checks and balances in place to make sure we're sticking to our plan and executing everything the way that it needs to be executed. And probably gave you more of an explanation on some of this stuff than I expected to, but it puts us in a position by December, hopefully early in December, to start doing some real demo on those buildings, assuming that our closing stays on track here like we expect it to. And then just backing up a little bit further and giving you more of a high level view, I think that by, call it February, March of 2026, which will be here before you know it, Beacon will have their pad delivered to them, and they'll be able to start construction on vertical construction on building A. And by April, probably early May of 26, we'll have the same pad delivery condition on our side of the site for building B. It's just because of how the grading works and all the stuff that's happening around the building that it's phased that way. But we are both starting at the same time, and we're really gearing up here. There's a ton of work happening behind the scenes to make sure it's it all starts coming together here in late 25, early 26. So hopefully I've given you a good enough explanation for now. I think as we go forward, I'll be able to get dig into what we're actually working on for a single month and give you much more detail about it. But for now, I hopefully that gives people enough information to know what to expect over the rest of this year.
Thank you, Scott. Councilor Klingon, I see you have your hand up. I just want to check quickly, Kevin or Nick, is there anything you want to add to that explanation before we start to take questions?
Thanks, Ben. No, I think that covers the next couple months very well.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilor Klingon.
You to the development team, just a question about when I think when a lot of people picture when you're saying they deliver a pad, you know, in my mind, I don't know construction well, so I'm just picturing sort of like this flat pad as we're not, really going down to any depth. But I am curious. I mean, there must be some, like, how far down do you all plan to go in terms of, a basement to the building? I mean, you're certainly not starting on the ground floor, so you will be going down to some degree.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one for you, Councilor Klingon. And Kevin and Nick, you might have, exact details and dimensions that I don't have, but we went through painstaking efforts to make sure we didn't have to take a lot of soil out of the ground here for obvious reasons. It was one of the things that allowed this project to be feasible. So the only thing we're going to excavate below grade is foundation structure. So like the depth you need to go to get to a bottom of footing and get some good material under there. That's as deep as we'll be digging. So you'll
Deep as that? I'm just curious.
There are steps in the slab. So, I mean, on average, you try to go 4 feet below where the frost line is, but the slab elevations step as you go. So I'd say we're probably at our deepest excavations, maybe 8 to 10 feet. And Kevin, Nick, if you know anything different, but, and that's not everywhere either, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Select
Yeah.
locations. And we'll have to
Yeah.
excavate for some of the like underground drainage structures and utilities that are coming into the site, but all that stuff is relatively shallow. So you're not going to see at any time any massive hole in the ground. I think the biggest single excavation you'll see is probably when we're taking that asbestos soil out in this first stage, and then it's really building things up from there.
Yeah, like I said, I just wanted to picture it and get an idea because I know what the challenge of the asbestos and those size building, not building underground parking. I was just curious as to what people could expect to look at it, like you said, in terms of a hole. Like 10 to 12 feet is not, this massive hole. But either way, like you said, hopefully we're building by the spring anyway. So, but no, that's a good outline of where we are and where we're going, hopefully within the next few months. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, Counselor. Do any other CAC members have questions? And I know we also have 7 members of the public now. So if any member of the public does have a question, please feel welcome to raise your hand. Scott, you were thorough.
Yeah, I expected some more.
Okay.
I will
Renee.
say, because I think just one more thing, if you don't mind, because I think it'll be pertinent to this group, that we will be having some sort of groundbreaking demo party, in the relatively short-term future here. We want to wait until we have some good activity out there to really celebrate, but we're getting close, and that's definitely still on our radar.
Counselor Clan.
Yeah, so I
Oh.
I thought maybe other people would have questions, so I don't be the only one asking questions.
No, I was just saying, Renee. I'm realizing Renee had her hand up also, but Renee, I'll come to your question right after this.
Yeah, so just because since we're going to be moving on, from essentially from 29 after this, just because I know people may have anxiety around, once the demo starts happening, but when does like the traffic plan kick in? When does the rat abatement kick in? I know that by the rules, I think it says 7 days before you start demoing. And just for the public watching, I'm sure that this team is going to follow everything to the letter. I just want to kind of have that quickly discussion because, like you said, February is going to come really fast. The season's going to fly by, and I just want, since this is being recorded and people are paying attention and people are getting excited that this is really coming to fruition, I just want to ask those questions as far as the rodent mitigation. And I know you said with the asbestos, DEP, like you'll be following all the guidelines and everything will be by the book. But as far as the piece on plan, I can sort of where those trucks are going to be, what entrance are going to be coming in and out of, what that might look like. Just a little bit of that. We may not be completely there yet, but we get an idea.
Sure. Timing wise, we're not completely there, but as far as like developing a plan, we're absolutely there. So the road and control one's easy. I actually think we already have our program in place. We were trying to initiate that last week. We will need it before we get any permit for, I thought it was 2 weeks, but if it's 1 week, it'll be, more than that by the time we start anything out there. So
Mhm.
I think there are, regular maintenance requirements, biweekly, monthly, whatever it is, that'll be in place throughout the duration of construction. The traffic plan that we've been reviewing, revising, working on with the engineering department and with our construction team over the course of the last year is we'll start implementing that as soon as we mobilize, but we're not going to necessarily take sidewalk from the city or do things that will impact anyone outside of our site until we need to. So it will probably be, like a phased implementation over the rest of this year. And I think we have, we're good until probably early November when we actually really have some trucks going in and out of there that we need to start setting up for. And that would be the soonest.
Mhm.
And you can only get so many trucks when like the non-traditional work plan, that's for the soil abatement work. It won't be dozens of trucks a day. I wish it could be because we could get it done quicker, but you're relatively limited as far as how many trucks you can get because we have to ship it a good distance.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, I'm sure that hopefully will, answer speak to some people's concerns. And then the last thing I'll say is before I turn over to Renee is, yeah, I did talk to Robert. I've been really in his ear about this demo party. We don't have a date yet, but I'm very much on top of it. And want to have something like with the Wood Hill Brewery guys and that using that park lot over there. Definitely make a thing of it because this is something that people have been waiting a long time to see come down. So I hate to miss the moment. Appreciate you all working with us on that and trying to make that reality because I think it really will be a fun event. I was like pushing for like 11:15 on 11:15, but I know that's way too early now that I heard the timeline. I talked to Robert earlier and he said that it's looking more like mid December hopefully, but again, no promises. We got to wait and see what dates we're looking at, but I'm really excited to see that happen. Thanks.
Likewise, thanks.
Renee. Renee, you're muted. Renee, you are muted.
My question is, because I know the neighbors are gonna ask, what's the role of the Sewell Street lots in this process? And how they're gonna be used? Because one's gonna be a park and the other one is gonna be, development by another group. So how are they gonna be used? What's the effect of the traffic that's gonna be coming up and down Sewell Street?
That's a good question. I think what we call Lot 4, the lot that we've deeded to the Somerville Community Land Trust, is probably an easier one to answer. We have a license agreement with them to use that for construction staging, right? So storage of materials or an office trailer, whatever it might be, until they need it. So it could be 6 months, could be 18. I don't know exactly how long that will be, but we've agreed to keep it clean, keep the snow off of it, maintain it like we started to do recently, in exchange for being able to use it for construction, staging, overflow type items. So that's temporary, and probably you won't see trucks going in and out of there. It's not like a main point of deliveries or anything like that. It's just a extra area that we're fortunate enough to have. The park, the Sewell Street, what will become the Sewell Street Park, that will be a point that you could drive in and out of, but we have it's not on the truck route, right? That's a one-way street back there, I think. So the main deliveries come in and out through Broadway. We're going to create a new entrance there, and it will the Sewell Street Park will be used as another more of a staging area than an active delivery area. We want to try to keep trucks off Sewell Street if at all possible. We have a defined truck route in our construction management plan. There's actually, we put some thought into where things come in, where they leave from, what streets they go down. So Sewell Street should be hopefully, less traffic on there from our construction crews than the main street, than Broadway.
Yeah, because it's a tight turn from Sewell Street onto Grant. And a number of trucks end up backing up onto up to, onto Temple to get out off the street.
The way we've set up our traffic management plan, it's actually, we're gonna create a new entrance on Broadway, so you could drive a truck in on Broadway, keep it parallel to where, you know, Broadway is, then drive right out from there on, back onto Broadway. So you're not driving through the site, around the site, you're in and out from, you know, the point of access where the most cars are.
When are the trees coming down?
That's a good question. Not in the immediate future, right? But it will happen as part of the site operation before we go vertical. But not specifically something we've talked about as part of this upfront work.
Yeah, because there's a lot of weed trees in the back of the lot. In the alleyway between the back of the sidewall of the drugstore and the housing on Sewell Street.
Yeah, I imagine that portion will come down in sequence with the building demo there in December-ish, would be my best guess.
Yeah, that's also an area where the rats like to live.
I'm sure, yeah.
Could I just ask before we move on, could I just ask, since we do have a website up for this, and maybe this is already the case, but can you all upload, like, just in the name of transparency, as many sort of documents as you can, like, again, mainly, for example, the traffic management plan or any documents associated with the project that the public could go to and look at, so that might be helpful.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think we could pretty easily pull them from the permitting portal website and, you know, post the ones that might be of interest to people on there.
That'd be great, because not everybody can access them on the portal. So I think that'd be really helpful. Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments from either CAC members or members of the public? Not seeing any hands. Okay. Great. Well, Scott, Kevin, Nick, thank you for joining and giving this update. Super exciting. I'm sure I speak for everyone on this call when I say we're very excited to see just kind of movement on this project in the next few months. I know I've been seeing a lot of the behind the scenes work, but it's going to be exciting to see things on the ground. Cool.
Thank
Thank
you
you all for joining.
Thanks for all your help too. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. With that, I'm going to shift us into our one other substantive item this evening, which is just to give a quick update on a city acquisition of a portion of the 299 Broadway parcel. So the city recently acquired, or is in the process of acquiring, but was recently approved at the city council, an acquisition of what is called Lot 3 in the 299 Broadway plan. So Lot 3 refers to kind of a small area that wraps around the building at the corner of Temple and Broadway. So you can see here this space outlined in red. And you can see it's quite small compared to kind of the larger building parcels on the site. So you can see here, this is the Sewell lot back here. So just if it gives you a kind of a size comparison. This is something that's been kind of floating in the background and wasn't sure if it was going to move forward, but it did end up moving. So just kind of wanted to keep everyone in the loop on this. The goal of this acquisition really has been to ensure publicly accessible parking moving forward, which is less something we've talked about in this forum, but this was an important goal that was expressed within the Winter Hill neighborhood plan that was published back in 2016. Obviously, also, parking around this project and around this site has been a contentious topic and is something of interest. So any parking that is kind of available on this site is particularly important. The goal is that this parking is going to be used by both retail spaces, so both the existing retail spaces at the corner there, but then also new retail spaces that come online, the 5 or 6 spaces that are going to come on in the new buildings. But also that this parking is available for anyone who is going to the Winter Hill I don't know exactly what it'll be called, but the community room that will be created within Building A. So we've talked a bit about this in previous meetings. There's going to be a 3,000 square foot community room that's created in Building A, which is going to be publicly accessible. So kind of making sure there is parking to be able to access that space. Um, it's not that many spaces. It's 6 or 7 spaces, one of which will be accessible, the rest of which are going to be metered parking spaces. So ultimately what this means, the development team is going to kind of include this with their overall site work. So this is going to be, you're going to see parts of this change. I don't think in the immediate term, but just kind of as later parts of the project, you're going to see this included with their overall kind of leveling and work on the site. And then, like I mentioned at the end, the city will manage the parking. So just wanted to keep people in the loop on this. Cool. Are there any questions or comments on that? I assume I see one member of the public. Crystal.
Hi, Crystal Huff, Ward 5, but often in this area. I just wanted to put a point in the corner of if there could be 2 accessible parking spots in that lot. I know there are a lot of folks in that area who have trouble finding accessible parking, particularly in the residential area, but just even when going to visit people in that area and do the stuff we want to do in neighborhoods, there's not enough accessible parking. I think there's plenty of non-accessible parking. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I can ask the city's mobility team and parking teams about that. I know obviously with there being so few spaces here, the tension, or not tension, but the different demands are both kind of having like quicker moving retail spaces, but then also accessible spaces. And I'm not sure what other accessible spaces are available in the immediate vicinity, but I can bring that up to our parking team. Counselor Wilson, I see your hand up. Is that in response to Crystal or a separate question?
Yes, in response, I want to thank Crystal for raising that point. As we know, one of the concerns about the project is going to be the impact on parking around there. I think that it would behoove us to prioritize accessible parking, make sure that people who need to be the closest actually are able to get spots there.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Counselor Klingon?
Yeah, but I just want to put a fine point on that because I think people think when you talk about accessible parking, you're talking about just parking with the disabled symbol, but it's actually it'd be good to have a space there where it has the extra sort of carved out space for wheelchair van access. So like maybe one of each, regular placard for our elderly and disabled populations, but definitely would really want to push for one spot that allows for wheelchair access for people that come in the vans that have wheelchairs that need to come out of those vehicles.
Yeah, I can't speak to I'm not knowledgeable enough on the specifications around what the markings look like for different types of accessible spaces. I do know in the site plan that includes what the markings here will look like. The area around the accessible spaces, like there are 5 or 6 spaces that are kind of tight together the way that parking generally is. And then the accessible space has kind of like markings on both sides that make it kind of a larger overall area. I'm not sure if that meets the space specifications for a van, but there is a little bit more space around it than there would be for one of the normal retail spaces.
I mean, so I didn't realize there was a site plan already. I mean, we're not going to see this area carved out for public parking, metered parking, what have you, until for a while though now, right? When do they?
So the painting, like the markings on the ground will be something that they do likely at the end of the project. So after the construction of building A, since this is kind of most proximate to building A. So
Right.
probably sometime early 2027.
So plans can always be changed. I'm just putting a plug in
Yeah.
there for that type of parking space because I think that'll really serve a really population that has a really difficult time unloading a wheelchair. So that's all. Thanks.
Yeah. I have these two specific items on here for 299 Broadway. I know the last one is a little bit more general, but I do just want to check before I move into kind of general neighborhood updates if there are any other kind of general questions about the project or anything you've been hearing. Cool. Not seeing any hands. So I want to shift us into any neighborhood updates from CAC members. So we try to always carve out a little time. If there's anything else you want to share with this group, given that it's also just kind of members of the Winter Hill community who are here together. Is there anything that anybody here wants to share? I see a member of the public has their hand. Mary, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi there. I'm wondering if now the new artwork is going to be saved.
The rat.
Yes.
I wish we could ask Scott this. I don't know the answer to that. I know the idea has been floated, but I will ask if he can give that update the next time he's here with this group.
It is going to be saved.
It is,
Great.
okay.
A private citizen, I think, has asked for first dibs on that.
Good.
Okay.
Could I just add for a neighborhood update? There's been a lot of construction in the neighborhood, as we know, a lot of work, water work, gas main work. So hopefully it seems like that's starting to titrate down a little, but it's a challenge, especially as they're looking at potentially starting to have more traffic come in and out of there. We saw an improvement though with the traffic management plan around that construction. So hopefully that continues.
Thank you for that, Counselor. Are there any other updates that CAC members or members of the public want to make? Okay. Our last item is just public comment period, but we obviously have integrated this mostly throughout. I'll just give a quick moment if anybody from the public wants to make any other comment. We do. Okay, Crystal.
Hi, while I'm here, the Mamas Mutual Aid Medford and Somerville Garden on Sewell Street does still have some active plants running. People are welcome to harvest there. Anyone can. We would welcome help with that garden. The garden manager is explicitly soliciting assistance. And if anyone wants to contact Mamas for helping with that garden, we would really appreciate it. And you can reach Mamas Gardening Collective at gmail.com.
Crystal, I get the spelling correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, for sure. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think with that then we can move to adjourn. I do just want to make a quick comment. We have been doing these meetings kind of every 3 to 4 months, I would say, as we get closer to development. They might be a little bit more frequent now as construction and site work actually begins. I don't want to, there might also be moments where it's most appropriate to just send kind of an update email explaining what's going on. But I guess let me check with CAC members, like what does going back to a monthly cadence, which we'd originally talked a bit about, does that seem too often? Does that seem appropriate? Councilor Klingon?
I mean, like you said, I think it's kind of touch and go. I mean, with the holidays
Yeah.
coming up, like I don't know that we may. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure because I was thinking for a minute. I'm thinking like, well, if they do end up breaking ground in December, or maybe if the public has concerns if they're going to be doing their remediation work and, through November. I know that's not heavy work, but there's still stuff going on, so I don't know. I could go either way. I'll listen to whatever however the group feels. I could say, like you said, if we maybe touch and go, like if we feel like there's a need for a meeting, to reach out to you, and if there seems to be a level of concern about any issues or any questions about the project. But I'll let other people speak their piece.
Does anyone else have a strong opinion? Okay, why don't I plan to, so especially if they end up hosting an event in November, I'll see when if that is moving forward. If so, we don't necessarily need to have a separate meeting, but please reach out to me if there is anything that people do want to talk about, and then we can just kind of ad hoc be meeting monthly. And then otherwise we can kind of make sure we're not going more than, 2-3 months without at least coming back together and touching base about the construction. And we might end up deciding kind of in a quieter period of construction to go longer than that. But again, we'll make that decision as a group rather than just kind of like ending a meeting and then just not coming back together for 6 months. We'll talk more explicitly about that.
I think that with the fact that this meeting gets posted on the city website, that during this period of intense activity, it probably would be better to meet more frequently so that we are on record, and if the other members of the community want to make some comments or they're upset about something, we can monitor that much more easily. And they can feel like they're more likely to want to be able to participate. I mean, this is a major change for the Hill.
Yeah.
Right, but
And
I think what they're saying was we're not going to see any major changes until like the spring. But I would say that we should, at the very least, plan on putting something on the calendar, right? Like we should meet in January, like after just November and December, where they're doing this preliminary stuff. But I think if Renee or anybody else feels like we should, schedule one for November or December or both, then we need to just, then we should do that. But like I said, I do the will of the people. That's what I typically do. So, happy to do either of the, but I would strongly say, that, especially since we'll have hopefully new members in January. I don't know if they'll be named yet, because we're gonna probably lose a member in this group. But we are gonna, one way or the other. So maybe late January, we should plan on, that's a solid. And then if anybody feels strongly about November, December, then are you saying we should have a meeting in November and December, both, or one or the other, or?
I think
I think
December is a
just at
tough
least one.
month.
Renee, what is, Denise, I
sorry.
heard, what did you mention also, Renee?
Oh, I think at least once before the end of the year.
So maybe right before Thanksgiving, like,
Yeah, I don't see us meeting in December. Everybody's too busy with a lot of other things, but it
Okay.
should be after the election.
Okay, why don't,
and Ben, I think like hopefully they'll have an idea of that date. The date for the event it would be the first week in December, first or second week in December, like sometime between, that's hopefully right now, like we'd be shooting for like December, somewhere between the 10th and the 15th, whatever, for that event. So hopefully if we meet in late November, but before Thanksgiving, hopefully maybe we'll have a better idea, we'll have a date for that. So that'd be good. I'm fine with that.
that sounds
Skip
good.
it.
I will.
Late November,
I'll
skip December, late January, and then go
Okay,
from there.
That sounds good. I'll reach out after this meeting just to get availability for those few weeks, because I know it starts to get tight in really any time approaching Thanksgiving. So I'll get availability. Denise, I saw you just came unmuted.
Yeah, no, I just think someone in the public has their hand up.
I see.
don't know.
I will call on them in just a second. I'll get availability for mid-November. We'll aim for that. Hopefully it is, at that point, we'll have a date for a celebration, so we're able to kind of highlight that within that event. And then beyond that, we'll plan to come back together sometime late January, and then we can kind of set a cadence.
Yeah, and the agenda can be like public comment, update, whatever, updates from us even. So in other words, if we're hearing things and then, public comment, I mean, it doesn't just be a touch base. It can just be like a check-in, doesn't have to have anything substantial. It could be 15 minutes.
Sounds good. Yeah, if people are okay with that, I'm always happy to do that. Just want to make sure people feel okay about giving that time. But that sounds great. JS, I saw that you have your hand up. There we go.
Here we go. Hi, quick question. I'm wondering if you can share with us how many observers there are at this meeting? Like how many people are on the Zoom call?
Sure. Now, at this current moment, we have 11. We've had up to 8 members of the public. There are currently 4 members of the public. I think with panelists also included, we got up to 17 or 18 members total. So between members of the CAC and the development team, and then also city staff. Yeah, so probably about 20 total.
So, but only 8 members of the public at the peak?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
And before that was Empty by Janet Jackson.
JS, I'm just gonna mute you. Okay. Sounds good. I will reach out after this to get availability. Any other final comments or questions? Cool. It's great to see everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
See y'all.